when it comes to what's happening now, we have an invasion. We have a ground invasion in the beginning. Israel notified the Americans we're going to have a small incursion. Joe Biden is acting like he's advising the Israelis, oh, no, don't go in. You know, we prefer to get things done in a different way. All lies, garbage. The man is sending troops, deploying more forces to help Israel. And as a matter of fact, we've had an article that I'll get to in a second from Politico elaborating on exactly how many forces he's sending and what types of jets he's deploying. In addition to what they already have in the Middle East to support Israel. So Israel earlier on, they declared that certain parts of Israel are closed military regions. Metula, Misgav Am, and Kfar Giladi, very close to the Lebanese borders. And we heard more about deployment in the areas of the Syrian Golan Heights. We had more forces in the Syrian Golan Heights from Israel. And of course, they're saying limited ground invasion. This is how it begins. This is how it begins. And by the way, in previously, I labeled the title of this live stream, Lebanese Army Withdraws, after being asked to do that by the United Nations, the UNIFIL, the forces in Lebanon, and that they actually started withdrawing about 5 kilometers. We had a denial after that. That's why I removed this. With regards to the Lebanese army, we previously had a statement officially from Lebanon that if Israel invades Lebanon, the Lebanese army will be fighting against them. We'll see about that. So far, we're having them slightly going in, but we haven't had any massive actions happening between them and the resistance. And we're talking about very, very limited. I mean, up to an hour ago, Hizbullah sources confirmed that they haven't seen an invasion yet, but all of the indications show that they are slowly starting to invade, and they are what? They are notifying the Americans that they are starting to invade Lebanon. Okay. It's clear, it is very clear that what's happening now is that Israel is, like I said the other day, really, is waging a war of extermination against everyone who opposes it in the region for the sake of the United States of America, not just for the sake of Israel, by the way. Israel started to attack Gaza. They said, we want to have a limited invasion in Gaza. People thought it would end with Gaza. Now they attack Lebanon. They're starting to invade Lebanon. If you think that this will end there, then I don't think you're getting the full picture correctly. Israel is on a mission, and they are declaring it. They are saying it, and they are saying it not just against countries that they are in opposition to and oppose and don't like. They are also saying that against countries they have treaties with, like Jordan. We had claims against Egypt. And now Benjamin Netanyahu is sending a message to the Iranians. Ooh, the Iranian people. We want to bring democracy. They want to bring democracy to Iran or to Iran, right? The regime in Tehran, they don't want what's best for you. Let me show you this video. Let me show you this latest joke from Bibi. I swear the man, I think he's listening to me. He's copying a couple of things and deflecting like they usually do, these people. You know, Iran is using, instead of spending the money on the people, you know, they're spending it on wars. It's like, who's doing that? Yeah, Bibi. Okay, let's, hold on a second. Let's see Bibi for a sec. Let's see Bibi. Yeah, Bibi. Where is Bibi? Here he is.
I speak a lot about the leaders of Iran. Yet at this pivotal moment, I want to address you, the people of Iran. I want to do so directly, without filters, without middlemen. Every day, you see a regime that subjugates you make fiery speeches about defending Lebanon, defending Gaza. Yet every day, that regime plunges our region deeper into darkness and deeper into war. Every day, their puppets are eliminated. Ask Muhammad Def. Ask Nasrallah. There is nowhere in the Middle East Israel cannot reach. There's nowhere we will not go to protect our people and protect our country. With every passing moment, the regime is bringing you, the noble Persian people, closer to the abyss. The vast majority of Iranians know their regime doesn't care a whit about them. If it did care, if it cared about you, it would stop wasting billions of dollars on futile wars across the Middle East. It would start improving your lives. Imagine if all the vast money the regime wasted on nuclear weapons and foreign wars were invested in your children's education and improving your healthcare, in building your nation's infrastructure, water, sewage, all the other things that you need. Imagine that. But you know one simple thing. Iran's tyrants don't care about your future, but you do. When Iran is finally free, and that moment will come a lot sooner than people think, everything will be different. Our two ancient peoples, the Jewish people and the Persian people, will finally be at peace. Our two countries, Israel and Iran, will be at peace. When that day comes, the terror network that the regime built in 5 continents will be bankrupt, dismantled. Iran will thrive as never before. Global investment, massive tourism, brilliant technological innovation based on the tremendous talents that exist inside Iran. Doesn't that sound better than endless poverty, repression, and war? From Qom to Isfahan, from Shiraz to Tabriz, there are tens of millions of good and decent people with thousands of years of history behind them and a brilliant future ahead of them. Don't let a small group of fanatic theocrats crush your hopes and your dreams. You deserve better. Your children deserve better. The entire world deserves better. I know you don't support the rapists and murderers of Hamas and Hizbullah, but your leaders do. You deserve more. The people of Iran should know Israel stands with you. May we together know a future of prosperity and peace.
Does that sound familiar, everything that he's saying? It's as if he's speaking about himself and the Israeli people, wasting money on wars instead of education, promising the Iranians investments. Moody's just downgraded you 2 further levels down. Do you know what Moody's downgraded Israel to? 1 level, just 1 level above investment-worthy estate. Basically, and the negative projection again, like they gave them a negative projection before. Israel is expanding the war. It doesn't look like they have a vision for the future. They have problems internally. They have problems when it comes to the judicial system. They don't have any plans or roadmap to reach peace, and they're not worthy of a good rating. And he's promising the Iranian people. But why is he addressing Iran? He's addressing Iran because he's going to go after Iran after this. I mean, if someone thinks they're going to stop with Lebanon, I don't know what they're thinking now. The same, they're repeating the same thing that they've done with Gaza. They're going to Lebanon. That doesn't mean they will succeed. That does not mean that they will succeed. And the recent blows, heavy blows that they've given to Hizbullah, that does not mean that they are succeeding in taking down the threat that they are claiming they are fighting against. Because don't forget one thing. These attacks, these assassinations, although symbolic and painful indeed to Hizbullah and the organizations that lose these senior figures, they are not achieving the objectives. What was the objective? In the words of Benjamin Netanyahu, returning the people back to the north. He is putting more people into shelters. More people into shelters. The radius that Hezbollah is covering now is putting the majority of Israelis in shelters when there's a siren. If you've reached Jerusalem with a population of just over a million now, the biggest dense city in Israel, you're talking about putting more people into shelters. Plus, you're targeting the senior figures. Are you taking down their ability to attack you when they are saying that to this moment they are only using the bare minimum? You're not. Then what is this argument based upon? It's baseless. And again, with Gaza, today in Gaza, in East Khan Yunis, Al-Qassam brigades, the armed wing of Hamas, destroyed, not targeted, destroyed 2 troop carriers for Israel, consisting of at least 12 terrorists inside them. 2 targeted, not destroyed, targeted 2 more D9s and targeted 1 other Merkava tank. That's in East Khan Yunis. You have been in Khan Yunis for over 7 months now. You failed miserably with Gaza, and you will fail miserably in Lebanon. So what kind of return is this man talking about? And this talk is not just coming from me, by the way, when it comes to Gaza. The other day, I told you about Israel preparing the people to accept the fact that Hamas will remain in Gaza. We had this article today in Makorishon, a website that is very much aligned with Benjamin Netanyahu. Look at what they said. Despite military achievements, Israel hands over the management of Gaza to Hamas. That's the title. The military wing, this is what they call it. Look how ironic is that and how stupid as well at the same time. The military wing of Hamas has been defeated. Liar. You liars. They're defeating you day by day. And how can they have any sort of existence over the ground, right? So heavily without having this existence under the ground. At the same time that they're continuing, the army emphasizes the road to completing the mission is Gaza is still long. You're never going to reach there. But you're saying that Israel is handing over the management of Gaza to Hamas. And the other day we had another article, another Israeli website saying that Hamas now controls 2 million Gazas, the population of Gaza, meaning you failed to take down the governing power of Hamas, let alone defeat Hamas, let alone dismantle Hamas, let alone destroy Hamas. All of these claims that Benjamin Netanyahu has been banging on about ever since the beginning of this war. We want to destroy Hamas, we want to release the prisoners, and we want to ensure that Gaza never poses a threat to Israel again. Nothing whatsoever, zero. And when the moment came to such a high, intense level of protests against Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel, with almost 1 million in one protest, approximately 800,000, the biggest recorded protest in Israeli history, he goes to war with Lebanon. What? Couldn't he have done all of this with Lebanon before that? What was the main thing that made him go to all of this escalation with Lebanon now? Did Hizbullah do anything out of the ordinary? Retaliation. They started very minimal. You started to expand. They started to expand. And then you decided to go further and expand further, meaning you expanded the fire range going on who the Israelis you're claiming to protect. You're claiming to protect the Israelis, right? Firstly, the families of the first and most important people in Israel you should be concerned about, the prisoners in Gaza, are against you and against the war. Yesterday or the day before, we spoke about the families of the Israelis imprisoned in Gaza, saying that attacking or killing Nasrallah does not bring our people back. And it won't bring them back because he doesn't care about them, because he sold them. But some people are not realizing the mentality of Israel now, a country that used to be shaken whenever 1 or 2 people were kidnapped before, and now they are selling all of their old population. What does that mean to you? The Hannibal Directive on a mass scale If anyone's talking about the Samson option, well, they're already implementing this. But the Samson option, not against them, not against the people at the top, against the population. Hannibal Directive against the population. They're not doing anything to protect the Israelis. They're not doing anything to reach a solution. They're not giving any hope or any prospect for the future. And this man has the audacity to go and promise the Iranians hopes of investment, right, for the future. Now, Hizbullah are escalating at their own pace. Today, what did they target? They targeted the Karish gas field. The Karish gas field is a gas field off the shores of Lebanon that Israel and Lebanon, with the existence, of course, of Hezbollah politically, with the government prior to Netanyahu, with Yair Lapid and Naftali Bennett, reached an agreement with Lebanon about. You have this part, we have that part, and we basically share some of the resources. Okay? Hezbollah had attacked this gas field when, one day after, the energy minister in Israel said that we need to reconsider the deal that we had with Lebanon, meaning we don't want Lebanon to have any share. So Hezbollah told them, okay, you don't want Lebanon to have any share? Here you go. We're going to start to target the gas field. We're going to start to target the gas field. And of course, they're targeting Haifa now on a regular basis. And they're targeting everything they used to target and some when it comes to Israel and the northern parts of Israel. This is the Karish gas field that we're talking about here. This map, I mean, I'm not sure if it's from an offshore technology. Well, it looks like more... I'm not sure exactly if it's the pro-Israel, but I'm intending to show you the map here, okay? I'm not sure how accurate these are, and these lines here are when it comes to... but Karish is here. Lebanon is claiming sovereignty. Israel, they reached a resolution, but now they're saying nothing. And these are the gas fields off the shore of Gaza that Benjamin Netanyahu handed gas explorations to multinational companies for 2 weeks into the 7th of October, the biggest attack on Israel ever, right? All of a sudden, he is worried about gas exploration contracts, Netanyahu, instead of worrying about the people who were kidnapped and returning them home. He wants to hand gas exploration contracts. That's more important to him. So, clearly, Israel is on a mission beyond just Lebanon. They're looking at things to do with the energy. They're looking at things to do with gas. And they are close to completely eliminate the previous agreements they had with Lebanon when it comes to the gas fields. So, alongside the war on the ground, we have a war on resources. We have a war on the resources, not just what's happening on the ground, and these things should be considered. One other thing that I wanted to add here, before I open the space up for all of you, is the United States deployment of more troops in the region. So we know that they deployed their biggest aircraft carriers, nuclear, not nuclear, everything that they need. But now we're talking about more deployment. Clearly, there are some people in the United States brainwashed enough to a level where they would go and die for a genocidal entity that's worse than any type of dictatorship and fascist regime we've ever seen. I mean, people committing a genocide and an infanticide. going to fight and die for them. Imagine how dangerous that is. How brainwashed can people be? How brainwashed can you be to go and serve an entity butchering children? It's scary. The idea is scary that some people, although we had so much criticism from veterans and people who are active resigning, Aaron Bushnell setting himself alight, for heaven's sake. We hope he wouldn't do that, but to that level, really. A Jewish person in the army resigning and having all of these comments that we spoke about at the time. Who is brainwashed to that level to go and fight and die and put his life at risk for a genocidal entity? Haven't you learned from Afghanistan? They told you you're going there to liberate Afghanistan from these evil people wearing turbans so that you can instill democracy and have implement rights and women's rights and equality, only to leave 20 years later and many thousands of dead bodies, and those who are not dead are committing suicide in the US and going through epidemics of addictions and problems, probably dying on the streets. They only withdrew 20 years later to bring the Taliban back. Iraq, didn't you learn from Iraq? Weapons of mass destruction. All lies. Going on war, spending trillions of taxpayers' money. Are you believing Israel now? Are you believing Benjamin Netanyahu, the war criminal? Are you believing Genocide Joe? Who are you believing exactly? Or even Trump? Are you believing any of them? Receiving hundreds of millions from the Zionist lobby controlling you? Undermining your sovereignty and your state and your democracy and brainwashing your population? What's wrong with these people? So we had this article here in Politico. And after I share that, I'll open the space up for you. Austin orders U.S. forces to be ready to deploy as Middle East heats up. Well, we have reports that more are being deployed. The U.S. further beefing up its military presence in the Middle East, sending in additional troops and putting others on standby while keeping an aircraft carrier on station as the region prepares for more violence. The moves come after Israeli forces killed Hizbullah leader Hassan Nasrallah in Lebanon on Friday, alongside 2,000 Lebanese, including women and children, and bombing hospitals. Why don't you add that? In a strike that threatens to plunge the region into a wider war. Oh, seriously? You have a genocidal maniac running a state. What do you think that's going to do? Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Sunday ordered the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln and its attached destroyers to remain in the region, just a month after rerouting them to the Middle East while they were on a planned deployment to the Pacific. The directive comes days after the USS Harry S. Truman carrier strike group left its home port in Virginia for scheduled cruise, potentially creating a two-carrier presence in the Middle East for the second time since the summer. All for the sake of Israel. All for the sake of Israel. The Pentagon also announced that the U.S. will be sending additional air support capabilities in the coming days, and that the USS Wasp amphibious ready group will remain in the Eastern Mediterranean. The group includes the amphibious ships USS New York and USS Oak Hill, along with the thousands of Marines capable of performing civilian evacuations from Lebanon if necessary. The Wasp, which can launch small boats ashore, is also loaded with Marine-flown F-35B fighter planes, giving military planners an extra aerial punch if needed. Or if Israel's IDF Air Force locations and airfields and airports are attacked, they can fly them from the U.S. carriers. Say it clearly. Those ships have been patrolling the Mediterranean since June and have been at sea since April. The WASP group replaced a similar group of amphibious ships led by the USS Patron, which had its own deployment to the region extended several times and ended up spending 8 months at sea before heading home in March. Meanwhile, Austin ordered additional air force to be ready to deploy, elevating our preparedness to respond to various contingencies, the Pentagon said. We did deploy. They already deployed more forces to the region. National Security spokesperson John Kirby said to ABC's This Week on Sunday, we now have more force capability in the Middle East than we did in April, when Iran launched hundreds of missiles and drones. So there is already a very robust military capability to defend ourselves, to help defend Israel if it comes to that. Well, by now we people know you are Israel and Israel is you, really. The Pentagon elaborated on the ships, on the fighter jets deployed, including F-22s, F-15E, F-16, and A-10 aircraft. The merry-go-round US ships in the region comes at a high cost for the Navy. It also leaves the Indo-Pacific short-handed as ships are pulled into the Middle East to protect American forces in battle Houthi missiles and drones targeting commercial shipping in the Red Sea. So, hold on a second. U.S. Central Command also announced on Sunday the U.S. airstrikes had killed 37 Al-Qaeda and ISIS fighters in Syria on September 16th and 24th, including several operational leaders. Is that what you're justifying it upon? Come on. You're supporting ISIS. You created them and you sent them and you support the countries that support them. What are they talking about? They're trying to act like if it's against ISIS and all of this nonsense again. Trying to come up with this ISIS. Say it as it is. It's for the sake of a genocidal entity because you're just as genocidal, if not worse than them. This is what the US administration should admit. Don't tell me ISIS and Al-Qaeda. ISIS and Al-Qaeda are your creation. Hizbullah, they've been targeting them in Syria. And you're welcoming those who killed them. And again, we wouldn't be surprised if it was an American pilot targeting Nasrallah. Who knows? Who knows? You know, what is Israel getting all of this for what? For how pretty they are? No, they're getting it because they are serving the United States in the region. What's happening now is not only linked to Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel. These people are operating on behalf of the United States. None of this would have happened if the United States cuts the aid of Israel and its indefinite support. Israel wouldn't survive a day. If the United States leaves them, abandons them once and for all, they will not survive a day. They are fully reliant. These bombs that they're using now in Lebanon are bombs that the United States supplied to them after Joe Biden claimed that he was delaying these bombs. An act, a theater. This problem is with the US administration. They are the warmongers. Israel is the ultimate representation, taking everyone captive. They are claiming to protect the Israeli people. They're leading the Israeli people into disasters. The Israeli people still haven't felt, by the way, what's coming later on if this escalates. They haven't felt anything. But what they have felt is the negligence and the true identity, the true face of the government. Benjamin Netanyahu is claiming that all of this is for the sake of the Israelis. No, it's not for the sake of the Israelis. You liar. You're killing your own people in Gaza like you killed them on the 7th of October and massacred them and covered it up and threw your propaganda and spread your propaganda with your media arms globally to brainwash people that Hamas were only targeting these civilians, disregarding the Gaza division, disregarding the military operations, completely ignoring the statements coming from the Israelis that you were butchering them on the 7th of October in Be'eri, in Nir Oz, in the beginning, from the beginning. And that was from Israeli media. The images, the footage of the helicopters bombing Israelis being kidnapped to Gaza, those who were released afterwards confirming that Israel was targeting them on the way to Gaza and in Gaza to get rid of them so that Hamas doesn't have leverage against Israel. And Hamas told them from day one, you're targeting your people, you killed over 50 so far. If you think that that's going to reduce the price of what we're demanding from you, you're delusional, we'll still ask for the same price. And now the IDF chief of staff told them. The IDF chief of staff said what? We might not have them. We might not have anyone back from Gaza. What are the Israelis going to think? Some people serve in the army. How is anyone even still going there? I mean, these people must be brainwashed to the high heavens by still going on. And again, don't be surprised if some of these people going to Lebanon are American. Well, they're deployed, now confirming deployment. Israel's suffering heavily when it comes to the army. Okay, they withdrew the divisions from Gaza. In Gaza, they have approximately, 25% now? Over 70% are deployed to Lebanon now. But still with that, they had shortage already. Who's going to cover that up? America's going to cover that up. The United States. So we're looking at really intense days. This invasion is just the beginning. It's not that it's going to end now with a limited invasion like Benjamin Netanyahu is claiming. His claims are always lies. Previously, Gaza said, they said that Gaza was a temporary, limited invasion, only for them to continue and expand and go to Lebanon. The biggest question is, before I open the space up for all of you, where is this going and will Iran participate? That's the big question. Some people are asking this based on genuine interest to analyze the situation, which is our aim really, to analyze. This is what we do. We analyze, we read, we see. And others have more malicious intent. There's a very big, large media campaign against Iran. And it's global. It's from mainstream media. It's from the US. It's from Israel. It's from Arab states as well. Why? Because all of them have something against Iran for one reason or another. The United States has a problem. And when I say the United States, that means Israel and its proxies. Europe is the United States proxy. Europe is not an independent continent. Europe is a slave to the US following World War II. Hardly any European country has any independence, really. They're slaves to the US administration. Likewise with Israel. So we'll say the US. The US, because they refuse to submit to their will, and some of the Arab states to cover up their own shameful and abhorrent positions, sitting there watching and not doing a thing. So everything must be a show to them. Now, when it comes to the United States and these countries spreading all of this propaganda against Iran, they want to delegitimize the core country supporting this resistance front. That's number one. Number two, instill division between the resistance fronts, to tell them, no, the main country that supports you, it actually backstabs you and they don't need you and they're selling you out. And let's take that. Let's take the selling out part of it first. Iran has been paying the price for its position ever since the revolution happened. They have been paying the price globally. They paid the price with wars being forced upon them. They've paid the price economically. They've faced the price with embargoes. They paid the price with delegitimization. They paid the price from diplomatic. They constantly pay the price. It would have been easier for them from the beginning to say, I'm Iran, they're Lebanon, I have nothing to do with them, I have nothing to do with Palestine, I love the guys, right? And they're oppressed and all that, and I feel sorry for them. And if they can get killed, I'll send them a couple of meals and build a few field hospitals once Israel destroys everything, which is the official Arab position now, generally. You know, you can die, fine, we'll probably send you some medicine if Israel allows to open the borders. They could have taken that position. They haven't. And that's before any current organization, by the way, because they genuinely believe in that, like other countries who genuinely believe in helping the oppressed people, the population, against this tyrannical support by the United States globally, tyrannical empire called the United States, viewing human beings as nothing, as commodity, as products, as material. Nothing, and sometimes as hindrance that should be eliminated, which is what they do. Hindrance, fine, we'll legitimize a genocide. Cool. This is the US mentality. This is the US tyrannical empire mentality. Iran did not bow down. They've paid the price. They're still paying the price. Plus, selling them out. And what is that going to do exactly? Taking a leader off for the sake of Israel and the United States. But still sending them weapons, but killing their own advisor with them in Iran, but sending the people and killing them. What kind of logic is that? If Iran genuinely wanted to change position when it comes to organizations they support abroad, they will slowly start to shift position genuinely. Not with all of this theater. Fact of the matter is, foreign policy is not even almost debatable when it comes to the resistance movements. It's a core principle. And countries have core principles. That's for people who believe that principles or morals exist, because, you know, we live in a day and age where morals and principles, and nothing means anything. It's just money and financial gain, and your net worth is your money, or your properties and your possessions, and greed upon greed upon greed. Nothing is important when it comes to people. It's important to highlight that. There's an argument that they should go in now. There's an argument that they shouldn't go in now. The first argument is Hizbullah themselves, they don't necessarily want Iran to interfere. As a matter of fact, there was a statement, as far as I recall, from the late Sayyid Nasrallah himself saying, I hope they don't interfere. And I don't want them to interfere because we don't want to drag them into this position. And from the supporting groups. Why? Because to them, to that argument, and again, people need to approach these arguments as mature adults who are with it and wise and look at things to analyze them and see them. To them, to that argument, well, they would immediately fall into the trap and legitimize the plan that Benjamin Netanyahu has to be dragged into this all-out war and go. That's number one. Could be true, could be false. Could be a right approach, could be a wrong approach. The second argument is, well, you're having a genocidal entity supporting by a hyper-genocidal empire called the United States and its slaves in Europe, the slaves of NATO, following everything for American purposes, disregarding European interests, European economic interests, European sovereign interests, and everything to do with that. And the war with Russia and Ukraine is very, very telling when it comes to that. Look at all of the economic trouble and suffering Europe faced because of having this hostile approach with Russia for the sake of a comedian puppet sellout called Zelensky serving the United States empire and its objectives for global hegemony and the ultimate control over Russia. Then expand. Why? Because it's a scale going up. It's upwards. It's not like we're backing down. Netanyahu started this in Gaza. Then he continued to Lebanon. Well, what's going to stop him then from other countries too? Well, they're talking. He posted maps. Evil, curse versus blessing. Who's the curse? Lebanon and Syria and Iraq and Iran and Yemen are the curse. And the other countries are the blessing. And by the way, don't believe him about this blessing thing, by the way. He'll turn the blessing to a curse in a day. Blessing and curse. What makes you think he's not coming for you? That's the question. So the second argument is, if you don't battle the front in Lebanon, you will be battling it in the streets of Tehran. That's for Iran. Now, the question of a response or lack thereof when it comes to Iran, no one has that answer. We have statements. No one has that answer. And from the beginning of Hizbullah's participation, we said from the beginning, Iran wouldn't necessarily intervene if Lebanon is attacked, because Lebanon was attacked before. Intervene militarily directly with personnel. Why? Why? And then people need to understand why. People, supporters of the resistance in Lebanon, are being refused to go to the south by the resistance itself. Why? Because, well, we don't have capacity. The people are in their place. We have more people than what we actually need. And it's not time for you. If we lose people or whatever, then we might need you. But we don't need you. That's number one. So the manpower, they have the manpower. More people are begging to go to the north from Lebanon, for your knowledge. But they have more than enough people already in Lebanon. In the mountains, in the tunnels, under the ground, over the ground, hidden, seen, not seen. And most of them are unseen. To a level where Israelis thought they were fighting demons in 2006. Then, so this is the first argument. I don't need your manpower because I have manpower. The second argument, what are you going to do? Launch missiles from Iran and face interception from the US, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, alongside a couple of other genocide-supporting countries? That's the second argument. When we have the same missiles that we need to attack Israel from nearby locations with less likelihood of interception, that's the logic of the second argument. Of the first argument, excuse me, which is we don't want your support now. The second argument is to prevent them from going to Iran. But that's not necessarily going to happen if you have certain deployment when it comes to Lebanon. What is genuinely the need based on the current developments and based on where things are going? The genuine position appears to be as follows. Hizbullah, like they declared, they are using minimal force, but enough to a level to go deeper into Israel based on their escalations at a minimal level. From an internal perspective, that's their strongest point. And that's where Israel is miscalculating very heavily with the ground invasion. If you supposedly had all of the success by Air Force and AI and technology is your strong point, why do you need to go and invade? You can come up with an image of victory. There's greed, there's land greed, and there are talks about this biblical land and the importance of South Lebanon in the Torah and the importance of South Lebanon in Judaism. That's what the Zionists are saying now. Hizbullah would not necessarily need manpower at this moment. They are currently restructuring when it comes to the losses, the heavy losses that they faced at a leadership level, losses that automatically have people to replace them, as confirmed by the deputy today, and not just people to replace them, but a third option in case that deputy goes away. And by the way, the Deputy Secretary General of Hezbollah today said that we are following Sayyid Nasrallah's plan to the T. not changing anything. And if anyone is betting on another figure coming and acting in a different manner, it's not going to happen. So if certain people, for example, are waiting for someone to only react emotionally and at an instant manner without calculation, that's not going to happen. And that's probably the thing that would hurt Israel the most. Because they're trying to instill division, they're trying to tear them apart, they're trying to completely cut off the command from the manpower or the people who are fighting Israel in Lebanon. And what is expected is, if Israel starts to invade Lebanon, from Hizbullah's perspective, they've seen what Hamas has done in Gaza, a war of attrition where Israel to this day hasn't been able to achieve anything from its declared objectives of the war, let alone having an army exhausted and defeated and humiliated and demoralized and psychologically damaged, and tens of thousands of people wounded and disabled, and hundreds of thousands of them with PTSD and killing themselves, let alone the people fleeing Israel, the economic brains departing, and the economy is in ruins. Society is split more than ever before, and trying to portray this image of victory by targeting heads of certain movements, something that never ever worked previously by facts. When Israel targeted these people, they only increased them in power, only increased them in capability. So what we're likely to see is, well, if they can invade, then invade. We'll have the same scenario as we had with Gaza. You want a war of attrition? Welcome. We're in the mountains, we're in the tunnels, we're embedded in our land, and you are foreigners to the land that you are occupying, and you are a fake entity, and your own people are not willing to fight for you. Therefore, you have the United States now deploying more forces and coming. And Sayyid Nasrallah in his last speech, he said that my wish is for them to come into Lebanon. My wish is for them to come into Lebanon. And he knows exactly why he's saying that. Not for the love of Lebanon being occupied by a foreign entity. Hezbollah made Lebanon sovereign. There's no Lebanese sovereignty without Hezbollah. Hezbollah expelled the Zionist terrorist aggressors from Lebanon. Hezbollah gave Lebanon a statehood. Hezbollah are the reason that Lebanon looks like this in the map, by the way. Like Hamas liberated Gaza, like the Egyptians liberated Sinai. Israel only took a step back after being met with force, because it's a neo-colonialist, expansionist entity with no defined borders. Our borders are the last footsteps of our soldiers. That's what Ben Gurion said. And in Lebanon, again, anyone talking about Hezbollah. Without them, you have nothing. You don't have a state. You have an authority maybe like the West Bank. And that's about it.